If you are watching this right now, it is not by accident. In the next minutes, you are about to enter a world that very few people truly understand, a world that feeds forests, fields, livestock, and humanity itself. So stay with me, because what you are about to discover could change the way you see every spoon of honey forever. My name is not important. What matters is the sound you hear behind me. That gentle, constant vibration. That living breath of nature. These are not just bees. They are ancient lineages, living history, flying libraries of evolution. When I first stood inside an apiary like this, I didn't feel like a farmer. I felt like a student standing before something older, wiser, and more organized than any human system. Every hive is a civilization. Every queen carries the memory of her race. Every worker carries a genetic story that began thousands, sometimes millions of years ago. Today, I want to take you on a journey, not just through bee species, but through time. From the earliest wild bees of Africa, to the refined European honeybees, to the gentle British strains, the resilient American lines, the productive Australian colonies, and finally to the heart of this story, Apis mellifera, the honey bee that shaped agriculture as we know it. Look around any modern ecological farm. You will find bees next to orchards, bees next to cattle, bees next to crops, not as tools but as partners. Because true sustainability does not come from machines alone. It comes from balance. Modern tractors can prepare the soil. Livestock can regenerate it. But only bees can complete the cycle by giving life to flowers, fruits, and seeds. And here is the truth most people never hear. If bees disappear, modern agriculture collapses. Not slowly, rapidly. That is why every race of honeybee matters. That is why understanding their diversity is not academic. It is survival knowledge. As you listen to this story, I invite you to imagine each race not as an insect, but as a culture, as a lineage, as a guardian of ecosystems. Stay with me, because the first great chapter of our journey begins in the birthplace of honeybees themselves, Africa. And what emerged from there would eventually change the entire world. Our journey begins where the sun burned stronger, where survival demanded intelligence, resilience, and cooperation. Africa. This continent is not only the cradle of humanity, it is also the cradle of the honeybee. It revolved some of the most ancient and powerful bee lineages known to science. Apis mellifera sc. the African bee. Small in size, enormous in spirit. Fast, alert, highly defensive. Yes, but also incredibly productive and deeply adapted to harsh environments. These bees did not evolve for comfort. They evolved for survival. And that survival instinct is a lesson for modern ecological farming. Because nature does not reward laziness. Nature rewards adaptation. When I work with bees, I do not try to dominate them. I try to understand them. Because each race of honeybee reflects the ecosystem that shaped it. Move north across deserts and coasts, and we encounter Apis mellifera lamarckii, the Egyptian bee, a bee that lived alongside ancient civilizations. A bee that pollinated crops while pyramids were rising from the sand. Imagine that for a moment. While humans carved stone monuments, these bees were already building perfect hexagonal architecture. Generation after generation, without blueprints, without rulers, without machines. Further west, across the Mediterranean winds, emerged the dark European bees. Apis mellifera, the European arc bee. Strong, conservative, economical with resources. Built for long winters and unpredictable climates. In the British Isles, this bee became a symbol of resilience. In cold, wet landscapes, it survived where others failed. Not by producing more, but by wasting less. And here lies a powerful message for our agricultural future. Modern farming often chases maximum yield. More production, more speed, more extraction. But bees teach us another model. Efficiency, balance, long-term survival. This is why ecological beekeeping is not nostalgia. It is innovation rooted in ancient wisdom. As we follow this chronological tree of honeybee races, each branch tells a story of climate, geography, of co-evolution with plants, animals, and humans. And the deeper we go, the clearer one truth becomes. The diversity of honeybee races is not a weakness of nature. It is its greatest strength. Stay with me, because next we will travel to southern Europe, where some of the most beloved honeybee races on Earth were born. Bees known for their gentleness, productivity, and harmony with humans. And among them, a lineage that would conquer the world. As we move north through the map of time, the air changes. The climate softens, the landscapes become greener. And from these lands emerge some of the most admired honeybee races in the world. Italy, a land of sunlight, flowers, and balance. It was born Apis mellifera ligustica, the Italian honeybee. Golden in color, gentle in temperament, exceptionally productive. This bee did not survive by aggression. It survived by cooperation. Beekeepers across the world fell in love with this race. From Europe to the United States. From Canada to Australia. From the United Kingdom to New Zealand. Wherever English was spoken, the Italian bee followed. Why? Because this bee understood something essential. Work with the environment, not against it. Italian bees thrive in structured systems. They adapt well to managed hives. They produce abundant honey when ecosystems are healthy. They reward good stewardship. They became the symbol of modern beekeeping. Not industrial beekeeping, but responsible, thoughtful, sustainable beekeeping. Then, further east, in the cold valleys of Slovenia and the Balkans, emerged another extraordinary lineage. Apis mellifera cernica, the Carniolan bee. Dark, calm, intelligent, highly efficient with resources. This bee does not waste energy. It does not overconsume. It does not panic. Many ecological beekeepers choose this race today because it embodies sustainability itself. When I watch Carniolan bees working, I see a lesson in patience, a lesson in balance, a lesson in long-term thinking. And deeper still, near the Caucasus Mountains, evolved Apis mellifera caucasica, famous for its long tongue, able to access nectar other bees cannot reach. A quiet specialist in a noisy world. Each of these races represents a different philosophy of survival. Italian bees teach productivity with harmony. Carniolan bees teach efficiency with intelligence. Caucasian bees teach specialization with precision. This is not just biology. This is storytelling written into DNA. This is why modern ecological agriculture must respect biodiversity. Not only in plants, not only in livestock, but in pollinators too. A farm that integrates bees, regenerative soil practices, livestock rotation, and thoughtful technology does not fight nature. It partners with it. And when you stand in the middle of such a farm, when tractors work gently instead of aggressively, when animals regenerate the soil instead of exhausting it, when bees thrive instead of merely survive, you realize something profound. This is not the agriculture of the past. This is the agriculture of the future. Stay with me, because now we arrive at the heart of this story. The bee that connects all these lineages. The bee that changed global food systems forever. The one we call the honeybee. Apis mellifera. If there is one species that connects continents, civilizations, and ecosystems, it is this one. Apis mellifera. The western honeybee. The bee that traveled with humans. The bee that crossed oceans. The bee that learned to live beside us, and in many ways saved us from ourselves. But Apis mellifera is not a single bee. It is a family, a living tree with dozens of branches, each one shaped by climate, geography, and time. When we speak about races of honeybees, we are speaking about this tree. African lineages gave birth to strength. Mediterranean lineages shaped gentleness and productivity. Northern European lineages forged resilience. Eastern lineages refine specialization. Each race is a chapter. Each adaptation is a sentence written by evolution itself. And yet today, this ancient diversity is under threat. Not because of nature, but because of us. Industrial agriculture, chemical dependency, monoculture landscapes, stressful transport, poor genetic management. We did not just change the environment of bees. We disrupted their story. That is why ecological beekeeping is no longer a choice. It is a responsibility. When I place a hive, I do not see a box of insects. I see a fragile civilization entrusted to my decisions. Will I place them near diverse flowering plants? Will I avoid chemical contamination? Will I respect their natural rhythms? Will I select races adapted to this land rather than forcing productivity at any cost? These questions define the future of beekeeping. This is where modernity must evolve, not toward more control, but toward deeper understanding. Technology can help us monitor hive health. Modern tools can help us reduce stress. Data can help us predict disease. But wisdom must come from listening to the bees themselves. Because every strong colony tells you the same story. Balance creates resilience. Diversity creates stability. Respect creates abundance. And if you stay with me until the end of this journey, you will not just understand honeybees better. You will understand farming, food, and sustainability differently forever. Because this story is not only about bees, it is about the future we choose to build. And next up, we will trace the complete chronological tree of honeybee races from ancient origins to modern lines found across English-speaking regions of the world. The branches, the names, the stories behind them, and you will begin to see the invisible network that connects your breakfast, your landscapes, and these wings in motion. Now, let us build the tree, not with diagrams, not with cold scientific charts, but with story, with meaning, with memory. Because every great tree begins with roots. The roots of the honeybee begin in Africa. Ancient Apis Mellifera populations evolving in isolation, adapting to heat, predators, drought, and abundance. From these roots, branches slowly extended northward and eastward over thousands of years. As the climate changed, bees changed with it. One branch moved toward the Middle East and developed into bees such as Apis Mellifera syriaceae. Tough bees, nervous bees, survivors of extreme conditions. Another branch moved toward Egypt, forming Apis Mellifera lamarckii. Smaller bees, deeply tied to river agriculture, pollinating crops along the Nile for millennia. Further west and north, across the Mediterranean basin, evolved the European lines. The dark bees of Western and Northern Europe, Apis mellifera, found historically in Great Britain, Ireland, Northern France, Scandinavia. A bee built for cold, long winters and scarce resources. Then came the golden Mediterranean bees, Apis mellifera ligustica, the Italian bee, the race that would dominate modern beekeeping across the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. And next, the disciplined bees of Central Europe, Apis mellifera cyarnica, the Carniolan bee, highly favored in ecological beekeeping projects in the UK, North America, and sustainable farms worldwide. From the mountains near the Black Sea, Apis mellifera caucasica developed its unique ability to access deep nectar sources. Today, its genetics are present in many breeding programs across English-speaking countries. Later, humans accelerated what nature had begun. Through selective breeding, new lines appeared. Buckfast bees developed by Brother Adam in England, a deliberate attempt to create a balanced, disease-resistant, productive honeybee for modern conditions. Not a natural race, but a reflection of humanity learning, finally, to collaborate instead of dominate. This is the modern chapter of the tree. Not wild evolution, but conscious stewardship. And this is where you and I now stand. At a crossroads. Will we continue pushing bees toward industrial productivity? Or will we choose resilience, diversity, and ecological balance? Because the future of beekeeping will not be decided in laboratories alone. It will be decided in fields, in farms, in small apiaries, in the choices made by individual beekeepers who choose respect over exploitation. Stay with me, because the next part of this journey will become deeply personal. I will share what the bees taught me, not as a farmer, but as a human being learning humility in front of nature. And what they taught me may change the way you see the living world forever. I want to tell you something most beekeepers don't say out loud. The first time I lost a colony, it felt like a personal failure. Not economically, not professionally, but emotionally. You spend months watching them grow. You recognize their rhythm. You notice when the queen is strong. You celebrate the first nectar flow. You feel proud when the frames fill with golden honey. And then one morning, silence. No hum. No movement. No life. That moment changes you. It forces you to confront a truth. These are not machines. They are living systems. Fragile, intelligent, interconnected. That loss pushed me deeper into ecological beekeeping. Not because it was easier, but because it was more honest. I began to change everything. I reduced interventions. I stopped chasing maximum harvest. I planted flowers instead of expanding boxes. I studied local bee races instead of importing genetics blindly. I observed instead of controlling. And slowly, the colonies changed. Health improved. Aggression softened. Winter survival increased. The apiary became not just productive but stable. This is the difference between industrial logic and ecological logic. Industrial thinking asks, How much can I take? Ecological thinking asks, how much can I sustain? The same applies to livestock. The same applies to soil. The same applies to tractors and technology. A tractor can destroy soil structure, or it can support regeneration depending on how it is used. Cattle can compact land, or they can heal it through rotational grazing. Bees can be exploited, or they can become partners in a living system. This is why modern sustainable farming is not about rejecting technology. It is about redefining its purpose. Technology should serve life, not replace it, not dominate it. And bees understand this better than any algorithm ever will. Every healthy hive operates with precision. No waste, no chaos, no excess, only balance. If you are still watching at this point, you already feel it too. That quiet pull towards something deeper than information, toward meaning. Stay with me, because now we reach the most important question of all. What happens if we choose to listen to the bees? There is a truth few people dare to speak openly in beekeeping conferences. A truth uncomfortable, complex, and deeply misunderstood. Bees are symbols of cooperation. Yes, but they are also part of a competitive system. Not cruel, not malicious, but governed by the same ecological economics that shape every living organism on Earth. And when you begin to understand this, you begin to understand why so many beekeepers fail. Every flower produces a limited amount of nectar and pollen. That is the currency of the ecosystem. Energy, nutrition, survival, and like any limited resource, it creates competition between wild pollinators, between colonies, between species, and yes, even between beekeepers themselves. Though most will never admit it, Apis mellifera is an extraordinary forager. Highly efficient, highly adaptable. In many environments, she becomes the dominant pollinator. But dominance comes with consequences. When too many hives are placed in the same area, forage collapses, colonies weaken, immune systems drop, parasites spread faster, diseases explode, and the beekeeper blames weather, luck, mites, or fate, when in reality, the system was economically over-eclusite. If this idea feels uncomfortable, it's because it is rarely discussed honestly. And if you want real knowledge instead of comforting myths, then you should subscribe and give this video a like. Because this channel speaks the truth many prefer to hide. An economist would describe this clearly. Limited resources, increasing supply, declining returns, collapse of sustainability. The same model applies perfectly to apiculture. Too many hives in one territory create artificial scarcity. Not because nature failed, but because humans ignored ecological carrying capacity. Wild bees suffer first, solitary species disappear silently. Native pollinators lose access to food. Biodiversity shrinks, but then, inevitably, Apis mellifera suffers too. Colonies produce less honey, winter losses increase. Queen quality declines, behavior becomes aggressive, stress rises. And the beekeeper pays the price. I have watched it happen again and again. New beekeepers arrive enthusiastic. They add hives, then more hives. Then more, production per hive drops. They compensate by feeding sugar, by medicating, by forcing productivity. And slowly, the system becomes artificial, fragile, dependent. This is not beekeeping. This is ecological debt. A modern ecological apiculturist must think like an environmental economist. How much forage exists? How much pressure can the landscape sustain? How many colonies belong here? What is the impact on wild pollinators? What is the long-term health of the system? Because sustainable profit does not come from maximum density. It comes from optimal balance. Apis mellifera is not harmed by competition when ecosystems are respected. But she is deeply harmed by overcrowding imposed by human greed or ignorance. I have reduced hive numbers on my own land more than once. And each time productivity per hive increased. Health improved, winter survival strengthened, the system breathed again. Less control, more intelligence. Less extraction, more regeneration. If this way of thinking resonates with you, if you understand that real beekeeping is strategic, ecological, and deeply intelligent, then subscribe and give this video a like. Because these are the principles that separate long-term success from constant struggle. There is another layer to this competition, between genetics. Not all Apis mellifera lines perform equally under pressure. Some collapse quickly when resources decline. Others adapt, some overexploit. Others conserve. This is why local adaptation matters. This is why respecting bee races matters. This is why importing queens blindly is dangerous. An Italian line placed in a harsh mountain climate will struggle. A northern dark bee placed in intense heat may suffer. Carniolans in drought-prone zones may conserve too much. When people ask me why I chose this life, why I chose bees over easier paths, why I chose uncertainty over comfort, they never answer with numbers. They never answer with productivity charts. I never answer with market prices. I answer with moments. The first time a child held a frame of bees without fear. The silence of an early morning apiary. The smell of warm wax in summer. The miracle of watching a new queen emerge. The realization that something so small could carry something so powerful. Beekeeping teaches humility. You can own land. You can own machines. You can own animals. But you never own bees. They choose to stay. Or they choose to leave. And that choice depends entirely on how you treat them. That is the most honest feedback system nature has ever created. This is why I believe bees are not just pollinators. They are teachers. They teach us patience. They teach us restraint. They teach us observation. They teach us responsibility. Everything modern agriculture desperately needs. The future of farming will not be saved by bigger machines. Not by faster systems. Not by more chemical shortcuts. It will be saved by wisdom. Wisdom to integrate technology without destroying life. Wisdom to use tractors without exhausting soil. Wisdom to raise livestock without degrading ecosystems. Wisdom to manage bees without breaking their natural intelligence. This is the agriculture I believe in. An agriculture where ecology and innovation walk side by side. Where tradition meets science. Where productivity emerges naturally from balance. And perhaps, the most powerful thing about this future is that it is not controlled by governments, not by corporations, not by institutions. It is built by individuals, by beekeepers who choose resilience over yield, by farmers who plant flowers instead of removing them, by viewers who choose to learn instead of scroll away. People like you. And now, Gene Heslane, we arrive at the final chapter of this journey. The one message that connects everything. The one root that bees have been teaching us all along. If you stay with me just a little longer, you will hear it clearly. Bees do not speak, they do not write, they do not protest, and yet, they are constantly communicating. Through their behavior, through their health, through their disappearance, through their survival. If we are willing to observe, they tell us everything. They tell us when the land is poisoned. They tell us when diversity is disappearing. They tell us when ecosystems are breaking. They tell us when balance is restored. The truth is simple, but not easy to accept. Healthy bees only exist in healthy landscapes. You cannot separate beekeeping from farming. You cannot separate farming from ecology. You cannot separate ecology from responsibility. That is the invisible thread that connects everything we have explored today. The races of honey bees, their ancient origins, their adaptations, their struggles, their resilience. Each race of Apis Mellifera is a message from evolution: adapt or disappear, cooperate or collapse, respect limits or lose everything. And now, that message is addressed to us. To modern farmers, to beekeepers, to consumers, to educators, to anyone who still cares about the living world. The future will not be built by bigger machines, not by faster systems, not by more chemical shortcuts. It will be built by wisdom. Wisdom to integrate technology without destroying life. Wisdom to use tractors without exhausting soil. Wisdom to raise livestock without degrading ecosystems. Wisdom to manage bees without breaking their natural intelligence. This is the agriculture I believe in. An agriculture where ecology and innovation walk side by side. Where tradition meets science. Where productivity emerges naturally from balance. And perhaps the most powerful thing about this future is that it is not controlled by governments, not by corporations, not by institutions. It is built by individuals. By beekeepers who choose resilience over yield. By farmers who plant flowers instead of removing them. By viewers who choose to learn instead of scroll away. People like you. And now we arrive at the final chapter of this journey. The one message that connects everything. The one truth that bees have been teaching us all along. If you stay with me just a little longer, you will hear it clearly. The bees will continue their work tomorrow, as they have for millions of years. The question is no longer what they will do. The question is what we will do. Because the future of bees is inseparable from the future of us all. The soft hum of the apiary remains, a reminder that life continues, and that our choices today will define the world of tomorrow. Bees have lived on this planet for millions of years, evolving alongside flowers, forests, and humans. Every wing beat tells a story. Every colony carries a memory of survival, adaptation, and cooperation. As we move deeper into the world of honeybees, it is impossible to ignore the lessons they offer about balance and sustainability. These tiny creatures are not just pollinators. They are indicators, messengers of the health of our ecosystems, teachers of patience and models of resilience. When I walk through my apiary in the early morning, watching bees leave the hive to gather nectar, I see an invisible network of life. Each bee communicates with its sisters, signaling the location of flowers, avoiding danger, and maintaining the delicate balance of the colony. It is a system refined over millennia, efficient, precise, and surprisingly intelligent. Across the world, honeybee races have adapted to different climates, landscapes, and challenges. African bees endure extreme heat and drought. European bees survive bitter winters, and Mediterranean bees thrive in regions of seasonal abundance. Each race carries traits that have allowed it to persist and flourish. Understanding these differences is not just academic. It is crucial for ecological beekeeping and sustainable farming. In English-speaking countries, the Italian bee, the Carniolan bee, and the buckfast bee have become central to modern apiculture because of their temperament, productivity, and adaptability. But the story is more complex than just a list of names. Each race represents an evolutionary response to environmental pressures and human influence, a living archive of resilience and survival. By studying and respecting these lineages, we can make informed decisions about hive management, pollination, and conservation. We can support biodiversity, protect local ecosystems, and ensure that honeybees continue to thrive in harmony with the land. Every small action, from planting native flowers to reducing chemical exposure, contributes to the larger balance. As the sun rises higher, the apiary hums with life. The bees are at work and the land responds. Flowers bloom, soil regenerates, and the rhythm of life continues. Modern ecological farming is about recognizing these connections and working with nature rather than against it. By integrating livestock, crops, and pollinators thoughtfully, we can create systems that are productive, resilient, and regenerative. This approach is not about rejecting technology. It is about using it wisely. Tractors can work with the soil instead of destroying it. Livestock can enrich pastures instead of degrading them. And monitoring tools can help us maintain hive health without interfering with the bees' natural processes. True sustainability emerges from understanding, observation, and respect. Every colony I tend is a reminder of the fragility and brilliance of life. Losing a hive can be heartbreaking, but it teaches lessons no book can convey. It reminds us that our choices have consequences, that stewardship is a responsibility, and that survival depends on balance. Bees teach us that the smallest creatures can carry the greatest wisdom. There is another battle happening in the landscape that most people never see. It does not happen with noise. There are no visible scars, no broken fences, no dramatic headlines. Yet it silently reshapes ecosystems every single day. It is the invisible competition between pollinators, intensified by human intervention. When economists study markets, they speak of saturation, of oversupply, of diminishing returns, of collapse when balance is ignored. Nature follows the same laws. Each hectare of land has a carrying capacity, a biological limit to how many pollinators it can support. When that limit is respected, balance emerges naturally. When it is exceeded, everything begins to break down. Apis Mellifera, because of her efficiency, becomes both a hero and a victim in this system. Beekeepers add more hives to increase production. Migratory beekeeping concentrates thousands of colonies in bloom areas. Almond orchards, lavender fields, sunflower plains become crowded with boxes. On the surface, it looks like abundance. But beneath it, the economy of nectar collapses. The strongest colonies dominate. The weakest starve. Wild bees are pushed to the margins. Genetic diversity shrinks. Stress levels rise. Pathogens spread more easily. And slowly, season after season, resilience erodes. The beekeeper feels it first in subtle ways. Less honey than expected, more aggressive colonies, higher winter losses, more dependence on feeding, more dependence on treatments, more frustration, more confusion. And the industry responds with products. supplements, chemicals, techniques, shortcuts. But the real solution is never sold in a bottle. The real solution is understanding carrying capacity. When I began to truly study this, everything changed. I stopped asking, how many hives can I place here? And began asking, how many hives should I place here? That single question transformed my entire operation. I reduced density, I diversified forage, I protected flowering corridors, I coordinated with neighboring farmers. I allowed wild pollinators space instead of competing with them. And something unexpected happened. The bees became calmer. Honey yields per hive increased. Disease pressure decreased. Winter survival improved. Queen quality strengthened. The system stabilized itself. That is the power of ecological intelligence. And if you want to continue learning the principles that separate struggling beekeepers from resilient ones, then you should subscribe and give this video a like, because these lessons are rarely taught honestly. Another economic truth applies directly to bee specialization increases vulnerability. Modern industrial beekeeping often selects bees for one trait: honey production, or docility, or uniformity. But evolution never optimized for single traits. Evolution optimized for survival. Apis Mellifera evolved to be adaptable, diverse, flexible. When we narrow her genetics, we weaken her future. When we flood territories with identical queens, we reduce resilience. When we ignore local adaptation, we create fragile systems. A smart beekeeper studies competition not only between colonies, but between strategies. Do my bees rush aggressively for every nectar source, exhausting themselves? Or do they conserve energy and survive difficult seasons? Do they thrive only when fed? Or do they sustain themselves naturally? Do they depend on intervention? Or do they demonstrate autonomy? These questions define long-term success. In ecological beekeeping, the goal is not domination of the environment. The goal is integration. This vision extends beyond the apiary. It encompasses fields, forests, and water systems, forming a holistic approach to agriculture. As you watch the bees at work, you begin to understand that their story is also our story. Their survival, their organization, and their resilience mirror the choices we make as stewards of the land. Each action, from the smallest planting decision to large-scale farm management, has a direct impact on the intricate web of life that sustains both bees and humans. And so, the lesson of the honeybee is clear: by respecting their natural intelligence, protecting their diversity, and working in harmony with ecosystems, we not only ensure their survival, but also secure a future where agriculture, biodiversity, and human life can thrive together. As the sun climbs higher, the hum of the apiary becomes a symphony of life. Bees move from flower to flower, their tiny bodies carrying pollen that will feed not just their colony, but the surrounding ecosystem. Each trip is purposeful, each interaction deliberate. Watching them, you understand that no part of this system is wasted, nothing is superfluous. Every action has meaning, every life has value. Modern ecological beekeeping takes this understanding to heart. It is not about maximizing output at any cost, but about creating conditions where bees can thrive naturally. Hive placement considers sunlight, wind, and nearby flora. Flowers are planted to provide continuous nutrition throughout the season. Chemical inputs are minimized or avoided altogether. Each decision is informed by observation, by respect, and by a recognition of the delicate balance that supports life. Livestock and crops are also part of this balance. Rotational grazing restores pastures, prevents overcompaction, and encourages diverse plant growth. Fields are rotated to maintain soil fertility and reduce pests naturally. Together with pollinators, these practices create a system that is regenerative, resilient, and sustainable. Technology supports these efforts without replacing the wisdom of observation and experience. Every bee race brings unique strengths to this system. The Italian honeybee thrives in abundant, flowering landscapes and produces honey efficiently. The Carniolan bee conserves resources and excels in colder climates. Africanized bees show adaptability and resilience in extreme conditions. Each lineage is a product of millions of years of evolution and teaches lessons in survival, cooperation, and adaptation. By respecting these traits, beekeepers can maintain healthy, balanced colonies that contribute to broader ecological stability. There is also a human lesson here. Bees are not machines. They do not respond to brute force, shortcuts, or coercion. They respond to care, observation, and respect. Ecological farming applies the same principle. Healthy land and livestock do not result from dominance or extraction, but from understanding cycles, timing, and interconnections. Productivity emerges as a byproduct of harmony rather than as a forced goal. When a colony struggles or fails, it is a signal, not a punishment. It indicates what the environment lacks or what care is missing. Learning to interpret these signals is essential. Every beekeeper develops intuition through experience, noticing subtle changes in behavior, activity, and hive health. This knowledge, when combined with sustainable farming practices, creates a system that supports life rather than depleting it. Across the globe, ecological beekeepers are applying these lessons. In North America, colonies are selected for local adaptation and disease resistance. In Europe, native dark bees are being restored to strengthen biodiversity. In Australia and New Zealand, isolated populations are carefully managed to preserve their genetic uniqueness. Each effort contributes to a global mosaic of resilience, showing that human stewardship can enhance rather than diminish natural systems. As the sun climbs higher, the hum of the apiary becomes a symphony of life. Bees move from flower to flower, their tiny bodies carrying pollen that will feed not just their colony, but the surrounding ecosystem. Each trip is purposeful, each interaction deliberate. Watching them, you understand that no part of this system is wasted, nothing is superfluous. Every action has meaning, every life has value. Modern ecological beekeeping takes this understanding to heart. It is not about maximizing output at any cost, but about creating conditions where bees can thrive naturally. Hive placement considers sunlight, wind, and nearby flora. Flowers are planted to provide continuous nutrition throughout the season. Chemical inputs are minimized or avoided altogether. Each decision is informed by observation, by respect, and by a recognition of the delicate balance that supports life. Livestock and crops are also part of this balance. Rotational grazing restores pastures, prevents overcompaction, and encourages diverse plant growth. Fields are rotated to maintain soil fertility and reduce pests naturally. Together with pollinators, these practices create a system that is regenerative, resilient, and sustainable. Technology supports these efforts without replacing the wisdom of observation and experience. Every bee race brings unique strengths to this system. The Italian honeybee thrives in abundant, flowering landscapes and produces honey efficiently. The Carniolan bee conserves resources and excels in colder climates. Africanized bees show adaptability and resilience in extreme conditions. Each lineage is a product of millions of years of evolution and teaches lessons in survival, cooperation, and adaptation. By respecting these traits, beekeepers can maintain healthy, balanced colonies that contribute to broader ecological stability. There is also a human lesson here. Bees are not machines. They do not respond to brute force, shortcuts, or coercion. They respond to care, observation, and respect. Ecological farming applies the same principle. Healthy land and livestock do not result from dominance or extraction, but from understanding cycles, timing, and interconnections. Productivity emerges as a byproduct of harmony rather than as a forced goal. When a colony struggles or fails, it is a signal, not a punishment. It indicates what the environment lacks or what care is missing. Learning to interpret these signals is essential. Every beekeeper develops intuition through experience, noticing subtle changes in behavior, activity, and hive health. This knowledge, when combined with sustainable farming practices, creates a system that supports life rather than depleting it. Across the globe, ecological beekeepers are applying these lessons. In North America, colonies are selected for local adaptation and disease resistance. In Europe, native dark bees are being restored to strengthen biodiversity. In Australia and New Zealand, isolated populations are carefully managed to preserve their genetic uniqueness. Each effort contributes to a global mosaic of resilience, showing that human stewardship can enhance rather than diminish natural systems. As the light fades over the fields and the hum of the apiary softens into a quieter rhythm, there is a final truth that remains suspended in the air like the scent of warm wax and wildflowers. Bees do not ask us to save them. They ask us to understand them. And that difference changes everything. Every idea shared in this story leads to one conclusion: sustainable apiculture is not built on control, but on awareness, not on expansion, but on balance, not on domination, but on respect. The future of beekeeping will not belong to those who multiply boxes endlessly, but to those who learn to read landscapes, listen to colonies, and interpret the invisible economics of nature. If you have stayed until this moment, it means something inside you recognizes this truth. It means you understand that bees are more than honey producers, that farming is more than yield, that land is more than a resource. You are not here for entertainment. You are here because you sense that knowledge, real knowledge, is the foundation of everything that comes next. In the second part of the story, we will go deeper, much deeper. We will explore how to evaluate a territory before placing hives, how to calculate real carrying capacity, how to identify when competition is already too high, how to design an apiary that thrives without constant feeding and intervention. These are not theories, these are tools. Practical, concrete strategies that can transform your beekeeping from struggle into stability. This next chapter will reveal what most courses never teach. It will challenge comfortable assumptions. It will question practices that are considered normal. And it will give you a perspective that only long-term observation, ecological understanding, and real experience can provide. So do not walk away now, when the most important knowledge is just beginning. Stay connected to this journey. Stay connected to the bees. Stay connected to the land. And if this story has opened your eyes, if it has changed the way you see apiculture, farming, and nature itself, then subscribe and give this video a like. Because the next part will take everything you've understood so far and transform it into action. The hum continues. The lesson continues. And the path forward is waiting. Because this is not just a video. It is not just information. It is the beginning of a different way of seeing the world. Once you truly understand how bees function, how ecosystems regulate themselves, how balance creates strength and excess creates collapse, you cannot return to ignorance. You begin to walk through landscapes differently. You notice which fields are alive and which are silent. You sense when a place can sustain life and when it is being pushed beyond its limits. You stop seeing hives as boxes and start seeing them as living indicators of ecological truth. That is the transformation this journey offers. And the second part of this story is where understanding becomes clarity. You will learn how experienced ecological beekeepers make decisions before placing a single hive, how they read flowering calendars, how they analyze forage continuity, how they avoid invisible competition, how they protect both Apis mellifera and wild pollinators while still building a viable, professional operation. If you have ever dreamed of living closer to nature, if you have ever imagined producing your own honey, if you feel that modern life is pulling you too far away from what really matters, then stay with me because this talk may change the way you see the land forever. Today I am not only speaking about beekeeping. I am speaking about a way of life, a modern, sustainable, and deeply human path. Behind me, you see this apiary. But this is not just a workplace. It is a living ecosystem, a balance between humans, insects, plants, soil, sun, rain, and time. I stand here not only as a beekeeper, but also as someone who works the land, who understands tractors, who lives alongside livestock, and who believes that the future of agriculture must be ecological, intelligent, and respectful. If you are watching this and thinking, maybe I could do this, to hold on to that thought, because every real beekeeper started exactly there. Let's begin with something many beginners underestimate: the location of the apiary. Beekeeping does not start when you buy bees. It starts when you observe the land. A good apiary needs morning sunlight, protection from strong winds, access to clean water, and a natural diversity of flowering plants. Your bees must live in harmony with their environment, not in conflict with it. Modern ecological beekeeping is not about forcing productivity. It is about creating the right conditions so the colony can develop naturally, strongly, and healthily. When the environment is right, the bees respond with strength, balance, and resilience. And this is where real beekeeping begins. Another important decision is the type of hive you choose. Langstroth, dad ant, lay ends, different systems, different philosophies. But no matter the model, the principle should always be the same: respect the natural behavior of the colony. We are not factory managers. We are not controlling machines. We are working with living beings that have their own intelligence, organization, and rhythm. A modern beekeeper uses technology and tools, yes, but never forgets that the bees come first. Not all bees are the same either. There are breeds that are calmer, breeds that are more resistant, breeds that are better adapted to cold climates, and others that tolerate heat and drought much better. Choosing the right bees is not about maximizing honey at all costs. It is about selecting colonies that belong to your environment, that support biodiversity, and that strengthen your local ecosystem. This is where beekeeping becomes something bigger than production. It becomes responsibility. If you are still listening, it means something inside you already understands this connection, even if you can't fully explain it yet. And that is exactly how this journey begins. Now, let's talk about something that is both practical and symbolic: the beekeeper's clothing. The protective suit, gloves, and veil are not just safety measures, they are a statement of respect for the bees and for yourself. When you wear them, you create a boundary of trust. You are careful not to harm them, and they can work without fear. Modern beekeepers often complement traditional suits with lighter, breathable materials and even small cameras or sensors to monitor the hives. Technology should always serve life, not dominate it. To begin, you will need basic tools: a smoker to calm the bees, a hive tool for inspection, and a brush to gently move bees without causing harm. For the beginner, simplicity is key. Overloading with gadgets can distract from the most important lesson: understanding the colony. Everything you do should be deliberate and calm. Every gesture matters. The bees feel your presence and respond accordingly. One of the most exciting parts of beekeeping is harvesting honey. But modern ecological practices teach us patience. You only take what the bees can spare. If you plan to scale, even slightly, you will need proper facilities for extraction and bottling. This doesn't have to be industrial. A clean, organized workspace is enough. Hygiene, order, and respect for the product are the pillars of professional work. And remember, your honey tells a story: the flowers your bees visited, the seasons they endured, the care you provided. Treat it as something sacred, not merely as a commodity. Many beginners overlook this. Beekeeping is regulated for good reasons. Understanding local laws about hive registration, honey labeling, and disease control protects both you and your bees. Sustainable beekeeping is not just an ecological choice. It is a legal and ethical responsibility. When you respect the rules, you ensure the health of your colonies, your neighbors, and the integrity of your craft. Every element of beekeeping, from clothing to hive choice, equipment, extraction, and legislation, forms a web of responsibility. Modern ecological beekeeping is about observation first, action second. It's about working with nature, not against it. It's about combining tradition with modern knowledge and care with innovation. Every beekeeper starts as a beginner, but every action they take shapes the future of the bees and the land. Look at these hives. Every one of them contains thousands of lives, thousands of stories, and thousands of lessons. And the more you observe, the more you understand that beekeeping is a mirror. It reflects patience, persistence, humility, and respect. If you feel inspired, remember this is just the beginning. Stay with me, because in upcoming sections we will explore even more details about equipment, hive management, and seasonal care. By the end of this journey, you will not only know the basics, you will feel what it means to be part of a living ecosystem. Now let's continue with more practical aspects of beekeeping. The clothing you wear is your first tool. A well-fitted suit, gloves, and veil not only protect you, but also show respect to your bees. When you move calmly and deliberately, the colony senses your presence and reacts with harmony. Modern beekeepers often use lightweight materials, ventilation systems, and even sensors to monitor hive health. The key is balance. Technology assists, but never replaces observation. Next is the essential equipment every beginner must have: smoker to gently calm the bees during inspections, hive tool for lifting frames and managing the hive, bee brush to move bees without harm, containers for honey collection. Simplicity is crucial. Too many tools can distract from understanding your colony's behavior. Every action should be deliberate. Every gesture matters. When it comes to honey extraction, patience is your ally. Take only what the bees can spare. Respect their work and their needs. If you set up a small extraction area, ensure it is clean and organized. Proper hygiene and order reflect professionalism and care. Remember, each jar of honey tells a story: the flowers visited, the seasons endured, and the attention given by the beekeeper. Treat it as a living product, not a commodity. Understanding legislation is equally important. Register your hives, follow labeling rules, and comply with disease control regulations. This protects your bees, your neighbors, and your business. Ecological beekeeping is about responsibility: ethical, legal, and environmental. Respecting the law is part of respecting life itself. Now, let's discuss the modern philosophy of ecological beekeeping. Observation first, action second. Work with nature, not against it. Blend traditional knowledge with modern innovation. Every decision affects the colony, the land, and your future as a beekeeper. Every beginner will face challenges, but every careful choice strengthens the ecosystem and your connection to it. Look at these hives. Each one contains thousands of lives, intricate patterns, and lessons about patience, humility, and persistence. The more you watch, the more you realize that beekeeping mirrors life itself. Patience, respect, and observation guide every action. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are ready to start this journey. This is only the beginning. Stay with me as we explore deeper into hive management, seasonal care, and advanced equipment in upcoming sections. By the end of this hour, you will not only know the basics, you will feel what it truly means to be part of a living ecosystem. Managing your hives requires consistency, attention, and respect. Each hive is unique. Some colonies are strong and productive. Others are delicate and cautious. Learning to read the signs, the movement of bees, the shape of the comb, the presence of brood is the heart of successful beekeeping. Modern beekeepers balance tradition with innovation. They use record-typing, seasonal calendars, and even simple digital monitoring to track hive health and growth. But no tool replaces observation and intuition. Seasonal planning is crucial. Spring is a time of preparation. Inspect hives carefully, ensure the queen is healthy, and provide supplemental feeding if necessary. Summer is the season of abundance. Flowers bloom, colonies expand, and honey stores grow. Autumn is reflection and conservation. Prepare hives for winter, protect them from pests, and ensure enough food remains. Winter is quiet observation, minimal disturbance, only essential checks. The colony rests, storing energy for the next cycle. Following the rhythm of the seasons connects you to the natural flow of life. It teaches patience, humility, and a deeper understanding of nature. Every beekeeper, beginner or experienced, must also consider the long-term vision. Plan your apiary layout carefully. Consider accessibility for inspections and honey collection, protection from weather, and the diversity of local flora. This is not only practical, it is ecological. The health of the land and the colony are intertwined. Your role is to guide and protect, not dominate. You become a guardian, a teacher, and a learner at the same time. Every hive tells a story. Every frame, every comb, every buzzing colony teaches a lesson. Respect the bees, understand their language, and your journey as a beekeeper will flourish. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to join this journey of modern, sustainable beekeeping. Stay tuned for future sessions where we will explore detailed equipment reviews, seasonal hive management techniques, specific bee breeds and their unique characteristics, advanced extraction methods, legal updates, and industry insights. By the end of this series, you will not just know how to start. You will feel what it truly means to be part of a living ecosystem. And you will be ready to take your first steps with confidence and care. There is something deeply transformative that happens when you spend enough time among the hives. At first, you hear only noise. Then, slowly, you begin to hear meaning. You recognize calm, tension, strength, weakness. You learn when a colony is thriving and when it needs help. This connection cannot be learned from books alone. It is built with time, presence, and respect. Many people arrive to beekeeping searching for honey. But those who stay because they discover something deeper: purpose. Working with bees changes the way you look at agriculture, at technology, and even at progress. A modern beekeeper does not reject innovation. Instead, they use it wisely. Solar-powered fences, moisture sensors, temperature monitoring, lightweight tools, efficient extractors. These are not enemies of tradition. They are allies when used with intelligence and ethics. Beekeeping fits naturally within a modern ecological farm. Bees improve pollination for crops. Healthy landscapes improve honey quality. Responsible grazing improves floral diversity. Smart use of machinery protects the soil. Everything becomes connected. Apiculture, tractors, livestock, soil, water, biodiversity. This is not romanticism. This is functional sustainability. If you are listening carefully, you may start to realize that this path is not about escaping modern life. It is about redefining it. It is about building a future where productivity and respect for life can exist together. Many beginners ask, how many hives should I start with? The honest answer is fewer than you think. Start small, learn deeply, grow slowly. A strong foundation is always better than fast expansion without understanding. Every inspection is a dialogue. You open the hive, You observe. You interpret. You decide. This rhythm develops discipline, patience, and responsibility. These qualities do not stay in the apiary. They follow you into every aspect of your life. And if at this point you feel that this message resonates with you, that this way of thinking connects with something personal, then I invite you clearly and honestly subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Not for numbers, but because this space is being built for people who truly care about doing things the right way. This journey does not end with one talk. It grows with every season, every question, every experience shared. In future sessions, we will go deeper. We will talk specifically about different hive models and when to use each. We will explore detailed protective clothing and professional-grade equipment. We will analyze real extraction rooms and how to design them properly. We will study bee behavior, disease prevention, queen management, and seasonal strategies. We will even discuss the real economics side of beekeeping, without myths and without illusions. But everything begins here, with respect, with observation, with intention. Because beekeeping is not something you do. It is something you become. There is also a truth that many videos never show you: beekeeping is beautiful, but it is not always easy. You will lose colonies. You will doubt your decisions. You will face weather that you cannot control, flowering seasons that fail, and moments where you feel you have done everything right and still things go wrong. And yet this is exactly where the real beekeeper is born. Because in those moments you learn responsibility. You learn humility. You learn that nature is not something to dominate, but something to understand. This is why ecological beekeeping is not a trend. It is a mindset. It forces you to ask better questions. How can I support the bees instead of exploiting them? How can I improve the environment instead of exhausting it? How can I produce with dignity instead of pressure? Modern tools help, yes. Data helps. Mechanization helps. But ethics must always guide the hand that uses them. When you manage hives with this philosophy, you begin to notice something extraordinary. Your colonies become more resilient. Your honey gains character. Your work gains meaning. People who consume your honey will feel it. Not because of marketing, but because authenticity always leaves a trace. And this is why this channel exists. Not to create viral content, but to build knowledge, to build respect, to build a community of people who want to work with nature, not against it. If you are still here listening, you are already part of that community. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you believe that agriculture, apiculture, and rural life deserve a future that is intelligent, ethical, and sustainable. Because the future of beekeeping will not be built by those who seek shortcuts. It will be built by those who are willing to observe, learn, fail, improve, and persist. And in the next sessions we will continue this path together. When you walk into an apiary with the right mindset, you stop being a visitor and start becoming a participant in something much larger than yourself. You begin to notice the small details, the rhythm of the flight, the subtle changes in sound, the way the bees respond to temperature, light, and even your own mood. This awareness transforms the way you approach every aspect of rural work. You start thinking differently about how you use machinery. You become more careful with how the soil is treated. You pay closer attention to water sources, to flowering cycles, to the impact of chemicals far beyond your own land. A modern ecological beekeeper understands that every decision creates consequences. Using fewer chemicals means healthier bees. Supporting local flora means stronger colonies. Choosing sustainable practices means long-term productivity instead of short-term gains. This way of working does not make you slower. It makes you wiser. Beekeeping teaches you to value time. Not the rush time of deadlines and pressure, but natural time. The time it takes for a colony to grow. The time it takes for nectar to transform into honey. The time it takes for experience to become true knowledge. Many people search for quick results. Few are willing to build something that lasts. And yet, everything truly valuable in agriculture is built slowly. If you are still listening, it means you understand that deep down. That is why this space exists. To offer clarity in a world full of shortcuts. To offer honest guidance instead of empty promises. To show the real path, demanding but deeply rewarding. Because beekeeping done correctly does not only produce honey. It produces balance. It produces awareness. It produces a different kind of future. And that future begins with people like you who choose to stay, to learn, and to care. There is a moment every beekeeper remembers. The first time you open a hive and feel no fear, only calm. The first time you recognize the queen without searching. The first time you taste honey from your own colonies and realize you did not simply harvest a product, you earned a relationship. These moments are not bought. They are built. Built through patience. Built through mistakes. Built through mornings when you wake early to check the weather, and evenings when you replay every inspection in your mind, wondering how to improve. This is why beekeeping cannot be separated from the rest of rural life. You begin to understand how flowering depends on rainfall, how soil health affects plant diversity, how livestock management influences the surrounding ecosystem, how the way you drive machinery, how you manage land, how you treat margins and wild areas, all of it eventually reaches the bees. A modern beekeeper does not work in isolation. They become a steward of a living system. And this is exactly what the world needs more of. People who understand interdependence. People who think long-term. People who value resilience over speed. If this message feels different from what you usually hear, that is intentional. Because real beekeeping is not about shortcuts. It is about commitment. It is about showing up even when the harvest is small. It is about continuing even after losses. It is about learning when things go wrong instead of giving up. And those who walk this path seriously are never truly beginners for long. They become observers, then practitioners, then guardians. This is not just about producing honey. This is about becoming part of something that existed long before us and must continue long after us. And if you are still here, still listening, still reflecting, then perhaps this path is not as distant from you as you once thought. There is also a responsibility that comes with knowledge. Once you understand what bees need, you can no longer ignore the impact of your choices. You begin to question the use of aggressive chemicals. You begin to protect wildflowers instead of removing them. You begin to value biodiversity not as a concept but as a daily practice. This is where beekeeping becomes leadership. Not leadership over bees, but leadership by example. When neighbors see healthy colonies, strong pollination, and consistent honey quality, they start asking questions. They start paying attention. They start considering change. And slowly, without conflict, without preaching, transformation begins. This is the power of doing things correctly. A single well-managed apiary can influence an entire landscape. A single committed beekeeper can influence an entire community. And every beginner who chooses the ecological path strengthens this movement. You do not need to be perfect to start. You only need to be honest with your intention. Learn, observe, adapt, improve. That is the real cycle of sustainable agriculture. Some days you will feel confident. Other days you will feel uncertain. Both are part of the process. Because growth does not happen in comfort. It happens in attention. The bees teach this without words. They show it in their organization, their resilience, their capacity to adapt without losing balance. If you allow yourself to learn from them, they will make you better. Not only as a beekeeper, but as a person. And that is perhaps the most powerful truth of this path. Beekeeping does not just change how you work, it changes how you see the world. At some point, you stop measuring progress only in kilograms of honey. You begin to measure it in quieter ways. In the strength of your colonies after winter. In the calm behavior of your bees during inspections. In the balance you see between production and survival. This is when you understand that success in beekeeping is not about speed. It is about stability. Many people enter this world looking for quick results. But bees teach you a different logic. Slow growth, consistent care, and respect for natural rhythms always outperform impatience. A modern ecological beekeeper learns to design systems that support life instead of exhausting it. Planting flowering trees and hedgerows. Protecting water sources. Leaving space for wild nature. Reducing interventions when the colony is healthy. These choices may seem small, but together they create resilience. And resilience is the true wealth of any agricultural project. You also begin to understand that mistakes are not failures. They are information. Each loss teaches something. Each difficulty reveals what must be improved. This mindset transforms frustration into learning, and learning into long-term strength. This is why beekeeping is one of the most honest activities you can choose. It reflects your decisions clearly. You cannot hide behind marketing or excuses. The bees respond only to reality. And perhaps that is why so many people feel deeply connected to this path. Because in a world full of noise, beekeeping offers clarity. It strips things down to what truly matters. attention, responsibility, consistency, and respect. If you stay on this path, you will not only produce honey, you will produce knowledge, you will produce balance, you will produce impact. And step by step, season by season, hive by hive, you will realize that this is no longer something you are learning. It is something you are becoming. There is a quiet discipline that develops over time in every serious beekeeper. You begin to plan ahead without forcing the future. You learn to prepare without controlling. You act with intention, but you accept uncertainty. This discipline changes the way you manage everything. Your schedule, your land, your resources, your expectations. You no longer chase productivity blindly. You design systems that can survive bad seasons, not only good ones. This is where modern beekeeping meets intelligent agriculture. You start asking smarter questions. How can I reduce stress on the colonies? How can I simplify my management without losing quality? How can I make my operation more efficient while remaining ethical? How can I use machinery in a way that protects soil, plants, and pollinators? The answers are never universal. They are personal. They depend on your land, your climate, your goals, your values. And that is why copying others rarely works long term. You must observe your own bees. You must study your own environment. You must build your own system. This is not weakness. This is mastery. When you reach this point, you realize something important. You are no longer following beekeeping. You are practicing it. You stop asking, what should I do? And you begin asking, what are my bees telling me? That shift changes everything. Because beekeeping is not controlled from textbooks. It is guided from presence, from consistency, from attention. And slowly, without you even noticing at first, you begin to earn something that cannot be bought. Trust. Trust from your colonies. Trust from other beekeepers. Trust from clients who taste the difference. Trust from yourself. That is when this work stops feeling like an experiment and starts feeling like a path. Over time, you begin to understand that beekeeping is not a hobby you visit when you have free time. It becomes a rhythm that shapes your days, your decisions, and even your mindset. You check the weather differently. You observe flowering periods more carefully. You pay attention to subtle changes in temperature, humidity, and wind. All because somewhere in your mind, the bees are always present. This is not obsession. This is awareness. And awareness is one of the most valuable skills any farmer, beekeeper, or rural professional can develop. A modern ecological operation is built on this awareness. You start designing your land with intention. You think about access paths for tractors that avoid disturbing hives. You plan grazing areas to protect flowering zones. You preserve natural margins instead of removing them. You begin to see your property not as separate activities, but as one integrated system. Apiculture, livestock, machinery, soil, vegetation, water, everything starts to work together instead of competing. This integration is not theory. It is practical, efficient, and deeply sustainable. And the most interesting part is this. When your system becomes healthier, your workload often becomes lighter. Fewer problems, fewer emergencies, fewer interventions. Because nature, when supported instead of forced, organizes itself better than any plan. Many beginners fear that ecological approaches mean lower productivity. In reality, the opposite is often true in the long term. Healthy colonies live longer. Stable systems require fewer corrections. Strong landscapes recover faster from stress. Sustainability is not weakness. It is intelligence applied over time. If you are still here, still listening, still engaged, then you are not just watching a video. You are already thinking like someone who belongs to this world. And that is exactly the point where transformation begins. There comes a stage where you begin to understand the deeper value of continuity. Not just continuity of production, but continuity of care. You start thinking in years instead of weeks. You imagine what your apiary will look like in 5 seasons. You consider what kind of landscape you want to leave behind. Not only what you want to harvest. This long-term vision changes everything. You become more selective with your actions. You intervene less impulsively. You observe more before deciding. Because you understand that every intervention carries consequences that echo beyond the present moment. A mature beekeeper is not the one who does more. It is the one who knows when to do less. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn. And also one of the most powerful. Many beginners believe that constant manipulation leads to better results. But with time, you realize that excessive interference often creates more problems than it solves. Healthy colonies, placed in healthy environments, often require surprisingly little disturbance. This is the elegance of good beekeeping. Silent efficiency, invisible balance, consistent stability. And when you reach this understanding, something shifts again. You stop seeing bees as units of production. You begin to see them as partners in a shared system. You respect their intelligence. You admire their organization. You protect their conditions instead of forcing their behavior. This mindset does not make you weaker as a producer. It makes you stronger as a professional. Because your work becomes resilient. Your results become consistent. Your reputation becomes solid. People trust honey that comes from care. People respect practices that are honest. People recognize when something is built with integrity. That recognition does not come overnight. But when it comes, it lasts. And that is one of the most valuable things this path can offer. Not fast success, but durable credibility. If you continue walking this road, season after season, choice after choice, you will slowly realize that you are no longer trying to become a beekeeper. You already are one. There is also a quiet pride that grows with experience. Not pride in numbers, not pride in yield, but pride in craftsmanship. You begin to notice it when you open a hive and everything feels balanced. The brood is compact. The bees are calm. The frames are clean. The rhythm is healthy. That moment tells you more than any certificate ever could. This is when you realize that good beekeeping is not loud. It does not seek attention. It does not need to prove itself constantly. It simply works. And people notice. Neighbors begin to ask how you manage your colonies. Other beekeepers begin to observe your results. Consumers begin to trust your honey without needing persuasion. Because consistency speaks louder than promotion. A modern ecological beekeeper builds reputation slowly, through actions, not words. Through clean practices. Through respect for animals. Through transparency. Through patience. And that reputation becomes one of your strongest tools. You will also notice something else. Your mindset outside the apiary changes too. You become more patient in everyday life. More attentive to detail. More thoughtful before acting. More aware of cause and effect. Beekeeping does not stay in the hives. It follows you home. It follows you into your work. It follows you into your relationships. That is why many who start this path describe it as more than an activity. They describe it as a teacher. Not a teacher that speaks, but a teacher that shows. Every season shows you something. Every challenge shows you something. Every success shows you something. And slowly, without forcing it, you begin to understand one of the deepest truths of this craft. You do not master beekeeping. You grow alongside it. The bees change. The climate changes. The landscape changes. You change. The work never becomes static. It remains alive. And that is exactly why it remains meaningful. Because when something continues to teach you, when something continues to challenge you, when something continues to require your presence and your respect, it keeps you connected to reality. And in a world increasingly disconnected from natural processes, that connection is no longer just valuable. It is essential. At this stage, you begin to see the broader impact of your work. Your hives are no longer isolated units. They are part of a network that sustains the environment around you. Healthy bees pollinate local plants, which supports biodiversity. Strong colonies ensure your crops thrive without excessive chemicals. Thoughtful land management preserves soil, water, and natural habitats. Everything you do ripples outward. Your decisions affect not only your apiary but the surrounding ecosystem. This is why modern ecological beekeeping is not only a personal endeavor, it is a community responsibility. You also begin to notice how small habits accumulate over time. Regular inspections, careful record typing, and consistent maintenance create stability. Skipping steps may seem harmless, but over time small errors compound, affecting colony health and honey production. And that is the lesson that experience teaches. Discipline is more valuable than shortcuts. Observation is more important than assumptions. Respect is more impactful than control. Beekeeping also teaches emotional resilience. You experience losses, colonies that fail, seasons that underperform, unexpected weather events. But instead of discouragement, you learn to adapt. You learn to analyze, reflect, and improve. Every difficulty becomes a teacher. Every challenge strengthens your skill. Every setback reinforces your commitment to sustainable practices. When you fully embrace this perspective, your work transcends simple production. It becomes a craft, a responsibility, and a source of fulfillment. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are committed to building a future that is ethical, sustainable, and deeply connected to nature. The journey is long, but every step strengthens both you and your colonies. And with patience, care, and observation, you will see the rewards not just in honey, but in life itself. As you continue your journey, you begin to notice patterns you never saw before. The way bees communicate through movement, the subtle shifts in hive temperature, the rhythm of nectar flow through the seasons. These details tell a story if you are willing to listen. Each inspection becomes an exercise in mindfulness. You watch the bees work and you start to understand their needs without speaking. You sense when a colony is stressed, when it is healthy, and when it is ready to expand. This awareness spills over into all aspects of farm life. You manage livestock with more empathy. You rotate crops more intelligently. And you plan machinery use more thoughtfully. Every element of your farm begins to work in harmony because you are now attuned to patterns, cycles, and connections. Beekeeping teaches you patience, but it also teaches foresight. You learn to plan months in advance, to anticipate seasonal changes, and to prepare your colonies for the unexpected. This foresight is a skill that extends beyond the apiary. It becomes part of how you approach every project in life. The beauty of modern ecological beekeeping is that it rewards observation and careful planning, not for shortcuts. When you respect the rhythm of nature, your colonies grow stronger, your honey is richer, and your work becomes more meaningful. And through it all, you begin to understand one profound truth. The best results are not measured in kilograms of honey, but in the health of your bees, the balance of your land, and the strength of the ecosystem you help sustain. Every season reinforces this lesson. Every success reminds you why you started. Every challenge teaches humility and resilience. If you are still here, listening and learning, then you are already walking the path of a responsible, modern, and ecological beekeeper. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to continue growing with this community and to stay informed on the next steps in your journey. As the seasons pass, your perspective continues to deepen. You no longer see each hive as a separate unit, but as part of a living, interconnected system. The success of one colony depends on the health of the others, the diversity of surrounding plants, and the care you provide to the land as a whole. You notice subtle shifts in nature, early blooms, late frosts, or changes in local insect populations. These signals teach you adaptability, patience, and humility. You learn to act deliberately rather than react impulsively. Every decision is informed by observation, experience, and respect for life. At this stage, you also begin to understand the intangible rewards, the quiet moments in the apiary, the gentle hum of healthy bees, the satisfaction of seeing colonies thrive under your care. These are the true markers of progress. The honey you harvest is no longer merely a product. It is the result of harmony between human effort and natural processes. And now, as we approach the end of this talk, it is time to reflect. The journey of a beekeeper is ongoing, filled with lessons, surprises, and growth. What began as curiosity evolves into responsibility, awareness, and connection. You have learned that modern ecological beekeeping is not only a method, it is a way of life. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you are ready to embrace this path. And stay tuned for future sessions where we will explore each aspect of beekeeping in more detail. The story does not end here, it continues in every hive, every season, and in every beekeeper willing to walk this path with care and dedication. As you step back and observe your apiary, you begin to see the bigger picture. Every hive, every colony, every flower, every tool, and every decision contributes to a delicate balance. Beekeeping is no longer a series of tasks, it becomes a philosophy. You notice how even small actions make a difference. Planting a few extra flowering plants increases nectar diversity. Leaving hedgerows intact provides shelter and habitat. Minimizing chemical use strengthens colonies and the surrounding ecosystem. These choices, repeated season after season, create resilience that lasts far beyond a single harvest. The lessons learned here extend beyond the apiary. Patience, observation, responsibility, and care become part of your daily life. You approach challenges with a calmer mind and a longer view. You understand that every decision has consequences, and that respect for life brings lasting rewards. And now, as this session comes to a close, remember this: the journey of a beekeeper is never truly finished. It is continuous, evolving with every season, every observation, and every choice you make. What matters most is the commitment to act thoughtfully, sustainably, and ethically. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you want to continue learning, exploring, and growing as a modern ecological beekeeper. This is not the end, it is simply the beginning of a lifelong path filled with discovery, care, and connection to the natural world. Your journey has only just started, and every step you take will shape the future of your apiary and the life around it. As we draw this session to its conclusion, I want to take a moment to thank each of you for joining me here today. Your presence, your attention, and your willingness to learn mean more than you might realize. Beekeeping is a path that requires dedication, patience, and care, and taking the time to understand is the first step toward truly meaningful practice. We hope that this session has been useful for you. Whether you are a complete beginner or already have some experience, the principles we discussed today — observation, ecological respect, ethical practices, and careful planning — are essential foundations for any beekeeper. The journey does not end here. There is so much more to explore, and we are committed to providing many more sessions, each focused on a different aspect of beekeeping. In upcoming talks, you will learn in detail about selecting and managing the right type of hives for your environment, understanding and caring for different bee breeds, choosing and using the correct protective clothing and equipment, efficient and sustainable honey extraction and storage, legal requirements and best practices for a safe and compliant apiary, seasonal strategies to maximize both colony health and productivity. Each session will build on the knowledge you gained today, providing practical, professional, and ecologically sound guidance. We want you to feel confident in every step you take in your beekeeping journey. Remember, modern ecological beekeeping is about more than honey. It is about building a connection with nature, a relationship with your land, and a deep understanding of life itself. Every decision you make as a beekeeper resonates beyond the hive. It affects the environment, the community, and the future of the craft. So as we close this talk, I encourage you to reflect on what you've learned today. Think about your own apiary, your own land, and the ways you can apply these principles to make a positive impact. Small, thoughtful actions create long-term change. Respect, patience, observation, and care are the most powerful tools you will ever have. And above all, remember that you are not alone on this journey. This community of beekeepers, learners, and nature enthusiasts is here to support you. By staying engaged, asking questions, and participating in future sessions, you will continue to grow your knowledge and skills. Subscribe to the channel and give this video a like so that you don't miss our upcoming P1 NCIs, which will explore every aspect of beekeeping in even greater detail. From hive management to advanced seasonal strategies, from ecological practices to legislation and safety, we will guide you step by step. Thank you again for accompanying us today. Your curiosity, commitment, and passion for learning are what make this work meaningful. We hope you found this session insightful, inspiring, and practical. Remember, the path of a beekeeper is long and evolving. It is filled with discovery, growth, and connection. And while today is the end of this particular session, it is only the beginning of a much larger journey. Stay tuned for our future P1NCIs. We will continue to explore, teach, and share everything you need to know to become a confident, responsible, and modern ecological beekeeper. Together, we can nurture not only our bees, but our land, our communities, and the next generation of beekeepers. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for committing to this path. We look forward to seeing you again in our next session. Until then, observe, care, and continue building your connection with the natural world. The journey has only just begun, and your role as a guardian of nature is already underway. Let's walk this path together, one hive at a time. Thank you, and see you soon in our next P1 Chia.